Good morning, everyone, and welcome to St. Luke's Sunday Forum. We are thrilled that we have resumed this and that you are with us. Whoever you are and wherever you're viewing from, we're thrilled you're here. If you are a visitor, there's a visitor's card on the website. We would love for you to fill that out. But let's go, because we've got two fantastic glory attack friends who are about to tell us about their lives being walking inspirations and walking people who are caring for our brothers and sisters who are marginalized and vulnerable. It is a thrill to have Kate Kennedy and Tony Johns with us. Kate is the founding director of the Ensley School. She's going to tell us more about that, including the formal name and why we have that formal name. And Tony Johns is the CEO and president and director and grand poobah of Crossroads Ministry. And that is a magnificent thing. These are two ministries that are on or were begun on our campus of miracles. And this Sunday and next Sunday, we're going to be talking about all 5 agencies who are in that classification. Today, we're going to talk about Kate and Tony in terms of who they are and who their heart is, how they came to be doing this amazing work, and an announcement of a lot of wonderful things that have just happened, and also a look into the future for both of these agencies. So the other thing I wanted to say about Kate is that not only are Kate and Tony in the pew worshiping at St. Luke's Sunday by Sunday, and Tony teaches our Going Deep class on Sundays in the book of Hebrews. Kate also is a former member of the vestry and a senior warden, and I think you're on the search committee, right, Kate?
I am, yes.
All right, so that you know a little bit about it. Kate, let's start with you. Tell us just a little bit about you and how your heart was touched to have this vision for the Ensley School. Welcome.
Thank you. We know it's interesting because it all started for me at Crossroads. I was really involved at Crossroads. I volunteered at Crossroads pre-Tony, and actually my husband was on the board at Crossroads, and Tony came on board, and I joined the board of Crossroads, and then I chaired the board. And it was through my work there that I started to notice there were so many children coming through Crossroads for services with their parents. And a lot of times it was during the school day, and you wonder, why aren't these children in school? And so I just began asking questions. And one thing led to another. And what we realized was that a lot of children who have insecure housing don't go to school for various reasons. So, we call our program Faith Inspired, because I was inspired by my faith to move forward, to be the hands and feet of Christ, and to figure out how we could serve these vulnerable neighbors that were right on the doorstep of St. Luke's and of Crossroads. So with that, I had to pull away from Crossroads a little bit, which was sad, but Tony and I still work really closely together. And when you talk about a call, I always think of my work at the Ensley School, because as I've been moving forward, doors just open. We come across an issue or a question or a dilemma or, a situation, and the door opens and we move forward. So that's how the school was founded. We just started taking steps, and now what we have is a beautiful, innovative, bold program. We started 2 years ago with a pre-K class of 12 children who were experiencing homelessness. And next year, crossing our fingers that we go back to school on time, we will have 45 students, ages 4 to 6 in 3 different grade levels, all who are experiencing homelessness. 99% of our children return to us. And they stay with us, and it's been just a thrilling thing to watch them grow and develop.
It is thrilling and inspiring, and we didn't realize it. Now, Ansley School predates my being here. I was so inspired by Ansley School, I started bragging about it. Little did I know that Ansley School would become a factor of recruiting good staff people to work at St. Luke's, because they said, I want to be a part of a church that does what Ansley School and Crossroads are doing. So it's just amazing. Everybody smells Jesus in the ministry that the two of you lead.
Well, I have to just throw this in real quick. It's a great story. When I was first starting the school and we had hired our first employee, our very first teacher was actually Muslim. And I was having lunch with someone not related to St. Luke's, who we were talking about the school and the growth of the school and the starting of the school. And they said, where's the school going to be? And I said, I'm starting the school at St. Luke's. They're loaning us space. And we've hired our first teacher, and she's Muslim. And his response was, of course you're doing it at St. Luke's. St. Luke's is just the place that would open their doors to some crazy idea like that. And so, you know, it's been great. St. Luke's has been tremendously supportive of us and all that we do.
I love that we have that reputation. So Tony, before we talk about Crossroads, tell us, please, if you don't mind, a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. I really appreciate the opportunity. I came to Atlanta a little over 20 years ago now, after completing seminary and being freshly ordained. And I came to work actually in a discipleship program here in Atlanta, and right away got involved in some of the street outreach ministries that exist. As a matter of fact, my first foray into street ministry was with Safe House Outreach in downtown Atlanta. And from there, the passion just wouldn't go away. And so everything I did in ministry after that, including I started a church in Southeast Atlanta in an international community, but it always had a component of reaching out to those experiencing homelessness. And so that kind of work and service and ministry has always been part of my ministry. And I spent, after spending a few years pastoring, I went to City of Refuge, which is another nonprofit service provider here in Atlanta, and helped develop that program when they received a large facility on the west side, a big warehouse that we moved into. And the director and pastor there had a vision for creating a city within a city, basically a one-stop shop where those experiencing homelessness or those in crisis could come and find all that they needed in one space. And so I learned and I grew under that model and learned to minister and serve holistically, thinking about every part of a person, their needs spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And so I was really intrigued a few years ago. I was reached out to by actually Sam Petway and Boardwalk Consulting. Sam, a member of St. Luke's.
Yep.
Saying, hey, there's this organization called Crossroads. And of course, I'd heard of Crossroads and the great work that had been done by Crossroads for many, many years. Stan Dawson was the director at that time and was a good friend of mine. And we'd worked together on lots of initiatives in the Atlanta continuum of care. And so I came and began having some meetings with the Crossroads board and search committees, and just fell in love, first of all, with the people that I met, people who were on that search committee like John Bean and Wayne Vason and Melba Hughes and others that were so instrumental in sharing the heart of St. Luke's with me. And I don't come from an Episcopal background. Matter of fact, within Christendom, I'm probably as far away from being Episcopalian in my background as possible. But I'd always felt a little bit out of place in my tradition as a Pentecostal, and was looking for a place that was more involved in social justice issues and in outreach. And boy, did I find it at St. Luke's. And so my heart was drawn not just to Crossroads and what Crossroads was doing on the front lines with those who were homeless and especially those who were unsheltered, but what St. Luke's as a parish did and was doing and stood for in the community and all of the other work that was going on. And so almost 4 years ago, as a matter of fact, 4 years this June, I came as executive director of Crossroads, and almost simultaneously began attending St. Luke's and becoming part of the parish community as well.
Thanks, Tony. I'm going to insert here a value of St. Luke's, I think. I remember early in my tenure, this go round, we had a public conversation about homelessness. And either you or our guest that day, the other guest, said something about it's different being a church that has an outreach committee versus being a church that is outreach.
Yes.
And the two of you really embody that value that we seek to actually grow, and that is to be an outreach church. So thank you very much to both of you. So now let's shift a little bit to talk about the values that are embodied in the mission of the agencies you're representing in this conversation today. Whether you want to talk about your mission statement or simply the values that makes your heart beat fast about the mission of Ansley School and then Crossroads. Kate, will you go first?
Sure. So the mission of our school is to provide a really excellent education for children who have been experiencing homelessness, because we really believe that through family support and excellent academics, we can break the cycle of generational poverty for these children. I mean, it just seems so basic. If 20%, well, children who experience homelessness score approximately 20% lower on standardized tests in Atlanta public schools than their housed peers, being the only difference being their insecurity of housing and food. And so if you can't get an education, then you can't really become more than you are. Our motto is beyond circumstance, because we believe that these children can live beyond their circumstance if they have the support and the care. And so to me, that seems so simple. It seems like such a straightforward answer that it's exciting to me that we can create a program where these kids get what they need to really succeed in life and break the cycle of having to live on the street and have so much insecurity and trauma in their lives. And so we do this by not just providing, story time or babysitting. These children are getting stellar, excellent academic preparation. We have just announced the hiring of a new principal, which is really exciting. My background is not in education. And so I wanted somebody to lead our educational program who could really keep us cutting edge and innovative and research-based. So Kelly Wicks, we announced her just this week, has come on after a national search and she actually comes to us most recently from starting a school in the UAE. And before that, she started a school in Florida, a Montessori school. So she has 28 years of school startup and just a plethora and depth of knowledge. And so that is one of the most important things about our school is it's not just a mediocre education. They are getting an outstanding education that you would expect a child to get who goes to Westminster or Woodward or any of the private schools. But on top of that, they're getting some really robust case management, social services care. Next year, we'll also have a full-time play therapist, trauma therapist on staff with us to work with the kids every day, all day long, because they experience complex trauma in their lives. And that makes school hard. The easy things make school hard, like no school supplies, no access to internet. But then there's things like real trauma and sleeplessness and transience that makes it even harder. So we work to support the families in this mission. So it seems like a simple answer, but I think the important thing is we want to do it not just mediocre, but we want to provide top-notch opportunity for these kids.
Thanks, Kate. I just want to underscore a word that kept recurring in your last statement, and that is trauma. And this applies to the populations that both of you serve, and that is that poverty and homelessness are intrinsically traumatizing.
Mm-hmm.
And when you traumatize a child, then you've got some very difficult and deep-seated issues. And when either kids or adults are traumatized, that sets them up for health problems like diabetes, stress-related health problems like diabetes, heart issues, obesity, on and on and on. So poverty is, I just want, this is your hour, but I just want to underscore that poverty is violence. It's slow-moving, traumatizing violence. And even if we weren't following our friend Jesus, who said, when you do it to the least of these, you've done it unto me, we would be interested at St. Luke's in interrupting that traumatization and that violence that leads to sickness. So just wanted to underscore that. So Tony, let's shift to you. Values, mission statement, Crossroads.
Yeah, I'm glad you underscored the idea of trauma, Ed, because that's one of the things that we have to be acutely aware of with everyone who comes to us. Our mission statement basically is that we are trying to empower individuals, help them to realize the power they have, to overcome the barriers that exist for leaving poverty, leaving homelessness. And we want to provide the tools and resources they need to, we say, to stabilize in life economically and personally. And I think that for us, that's the key. How can we walk with someone to a point of stability so that they can even begin to attempt to leave homelessness? A lot of people, have kind of 30,000 foot answers, right? Well, just get them a job, get them a house, and they'll be okay. But we understand holistically that so many things are taking place within homelessness and poverty, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually, that it's not that simple, that people need to be able to trust again. And until they're able to trust relationally with someone, they're not likely to accept the resources and tools that you're offering. And that's because of a lot of things that have occurred that they've had to adjust to just to survive. So we try first to build relationship. That's why Clyde's Kitchen is so important. Because what better way to build relationship than over fried chicken? And
Clyde's fried chicken.
And Clyde's fried chicken's the best. Amen. I mean,
yeah, amen.
And his squash casserole's not bad either. But with what we have done, really going back to 1974 at St. Luke's Soup Kitchen, that first sandwich handed out by Jenny Pearson and that group of ladies and their husbands that started the work that became Crossroads. It was all about meeting someone face to face as neighbors. And I love that we focused so much in the last couple of years at St. Luke's on the idea of loving your neighbor. And we picked that up as a theme at Crossroads as well. And we even refer to those who come to us for services as neighbors to remind ourselves about what Jesus taught in the parable of the Good Samaritan, that we must seek to be a neighbor to those in need, and that all of those in need are our neighbors as well. What that leads to is community. And I think that it takes a communal approach. And I love what Kate and the Ansley School have done in creating community with the parents and the children. And looking at the whole family in the way that they've done it. And we've tried to do that in a communal model with those experiencing homelessness, to bring them in, make them part of something that they can trust, that they know, and that they can sit and have a conversation with. And it may not be about getting a job or a house right now. It just may be about the fact that they're tired today, they're angry today, they're hurt today, emotionally and spiritually. And we take that time and we build that into our processes. And so with that, then we bring all the tools into play, like documentation service, like assistance with MARTA, like a mail room where you can get your mail securely and know that it's going to be there for you, employment assistance and housing assistance, all of those things that are needed as tools that can't be utilized until the individual is prepared to use that tool for their own good. So we try to take that holistic approach and work with people, walk with people through the whole journey of coming out of homelessness.
And Tony, I want to add to that list of services, not that we're going to exhaust it, but don't you have some legal services for people who have an immigration issue? And don't you have some voter registration services also?
Right. We've tried to jump in on all of those areas that can help empower individuals in whatever place they are. So we partner with Atlanta Legal Aid to provide a lot of services, and they're geographically neighbors. They're just down the street, down Cortlandt Street from us. And so it's easy to be able to connect people with lawyers from there. We've also worked with the Atlanta Volunteer Lawyers Foundation on assisting people with legal issues. With immigration, we've looked to Catholic Social Services a good bit to assist, because there are documentation needs that are very different than someone born in the United States. And so it takes a little bit more research and investment to get that documentation. So we've reached out to partners to provide those things that we may not be able to provide ourselves, and made sure that our neighbors can get to those resources, not only know about them, but we make sure they can make that connection. And whenever we can, we make a personal introduction so that they don't feel like they're just being sent away cold to go find something for themselves. So it's those relationships with other agencies and organizations that really make a difference as well.
Excellent. So while I'm thinking about it, we should say that you lead 2 501c3s with your own boards, and you have websites where people can go and get information and donate, and
Yes.
and become involved. Before we go to the money, the money is going to be the next beat, because that's where we have such thrilling news for everybody to tune in and hear about. But before we go there, Tony, I'd just love for you to tell those stories I've been hearing every week about people who are showing up with sandwiches even during this pandemic.
That's really been such a blessing. When we first made the adjustments we needed to make, we realized that we couldn't have that safe, inviting atmosphere of bringing people into Clyde's kitchen and getting to hear Clyde pray, which, by the way, that's a moment in and of itself. A lot of healing takes place anytime he prays. But we knew that we were going to have to change for safety reasons. And so we went to the sack lunch model, handing them out at the door as our neighbors came by. And we were concerned as to how we were going to keep up with that, because at first we couldn't allow volunteers to come at all. But a majority of our kitchen volunteers were older, retired individuals. And so they certainly were more vulnerable and didn't need to come in. So we put out a call on social media, and it was just unbelievable. From day one, we have been receiving sandwiches and sack lunches and sack lunch supplies. And it always seems to be that when the cupboard gets bare, the next delivery, the next donation shows up. So God has provided through his people in incredible ways. And we have had enough sandwiches to feed everyone every week for the last 6 weeks.
So beautiful. And while we're talking about kind of the status of your agencies and your clients right now, Kate, will you talk about what's going on with our kids right now, and what about your move?
Yes. So our kids are doing well. I think that, as well as can be expected. Somebody said that in a way, our children and people who are already experiencing insecure housing, insecure food, were almost better able to handle this because they live in a crisis situation all the time. And so many of us that live in relative comfort all the time are really feeling the effects of the crisis. But, it's been interesting. We were able to purchase tablets for our children, and we're concerned about internet access, but they all seem to have been able to find internet access. So the teachers are doing live videos, teaching videos every day, and then the students are returning work every week to the teachers. So now I won't say that it's been perfect, because they're all getting really, really tired of it, and starting to kind of say, okay, we've done enough of this. But they're doing well, and we're providing them with gift cards for food and resources too. You know, Tony talked a lot about partners, and I think partners are one of the keys to the success of a nonprofit. If you try to do something that somebody else already does, you're just wasting time and money. So we provide resources such as Crossroads. APS is giving out meals. The YMCA is giving out meals, and our families can go to any of those venues and say, I'm an Ansley family, and they know that that they can be served and be helped there. So that's been great. We've provided some rent assistance for some of our families who have just moved into apartments, working closely with the shelters. So we are still providing MARTA cards, which is not, I know, the optimal way to transport yourself right now during the pandemic, but it's, it's all that can happen right now. So I think the families are doing really well, and they're ready to get back to school. I think it's funny, we have a Facebook page now, a Parent Academy workshop, I guess, and it's a Facebook page where the parents can go and they can talk to each other virtually and talk to our social worker if they're having issues, and they're ready to come back to school. Not just for the kids, but the parents have found a real community at the school and are really missing it. And when they do come back, since you brought it up, they will be coming back to a new location. We are so thankful to St. Luke's and all of St. Luke's patience and generous hospitality over the last couple of years, because it has been a wild ride having a school in the basement of the church. But we've been, and Ed, strategizing for the last several months on how can we find enough space on the St. Luke's campus to sustain our growth. We just didn't realize we were going to grow so fast. 2 years ago, we had 12, a year and a half ago, we had 12 children. Next year, we're already enrolled with a waiting list at 45 kids. Our staff is growing. Our need for office space is growing. We were going back and forth about what to do. St. Luke's had given us permission to use the property on the side of the building to park some modular classrooms, but we struggled with the zoning with that and couldn't get that to go through. And then out of the blue, one of our board members heard about some space for lease at the old Renovation Church, 120 Ralph McGill, which is literally right across the street, right across Cortland. Our parking deck is off of Courier. So it's 12,000 square feet that was used as a children's education location for a church, and before that for a school. So it's already set up. It needs zero work from us. We can move right in and start going. So as sad as we are to be leaving St. Luke's, we're excited that we are growing so much that we have to have bigger space. And we're excited to have found space right across the street. So we are just extending the St. Luke's campus. We're not moving off the St. Luke's campus. We're extending the campus.
I love the way you think.
Have already talked about the youth being able to use our space on the weekends when we're not there, because it's literally right across the street.
Yeah.
And so we're still here to be partners for change in the city and to expand the St. Luke's campus. So that's how I want everybody to see it, not as us leaving, but as us just spreading our wings a little. It's exciting.
So inspiring. So inspiring. Thank you. So I wish that I had that banner that I could run across the bottom of the screen that says breaking news, because you two have some breaking news about recent attention being given to you, and you're being honored with some grant money. So I'd love to hear about that. I'd love for everybody who's tuned in to hear about that. So Kate, why don't you tell us what this group is that's giving both you, Ansley, and Tony Crossroads some very needed money.
So the Community Foundation of Greater Atlanta and the United Way came together to create a fund, which several private individuals and foundations have contributed into. And it's a very large, multi-million-dollar fund. And they reached out to nonprofits who were working during this crisis, this pandemic, to apply for the funds. And both Crossroads and the Ansley School found out last week that we were recipients in this round of grants. So these funds will be, I know for Tony too, tremendously helpful. I mentioned that we had bought tablets for all of our children, which, was several $1,000s, which wasn't in our budget. We're providing them with food gift cards for grocery stores and Walmart every week. We're providing them with MARTA cards. We're visiting with them, keeping in touch with them. We're doing a little bit of assistance for some housing if they found a place to live and they need to stay there. So anyway, the money is very well, is very appreciated, and it was very exciting to be recognized, especially for us as a very small, very new nonprofit, to be recognized in such a big way by such a large program is just exciting. We're so thankful because it's going to go a long way.
So Tony, fill in the picture.
Yeah, the funds that we received from, it was the COVID-19 Response and Recovery Fund between United Way and Community Foundation have helped us to provide some emergency assistance. And so what we're now about to be able to do as soon as we have the funds is to help people stay in their home or apartment who might have lost jobs or been furloughed and are having a difficult time meeting that utility payment or that rent payment. And so it's going to help prevent homelessness, which is something that we've wanted to be a part of for a long time. And especially during a crisis like this, just a small amount to help get someone another month down the road in their home can be all the difference in the world. And so we're looking forward to rolling that out and beginning to help families remain in their homes.
That is so exciting. Oh, well, congratulations to you both. It is not only a wonderful thing for you to get some more financial resources for the work you're doing. It is also something that we need to underscore, that you have a reputation, that the United Way and this consortium of donors really trusts. So congratulations to Ansley and Crossroads for having a trustworthy reputation where people can put their money and know that it's going to make a difference in breaking the cycle of poverty, breaking the cycle of trauma, in putting an end to homelessness, and on and on and on. All the vision that I both know personally that each of you has. It's very exciting. So now I want to talk about the future, because neither of you, I know you, I have a friendship with each of you. Neither of you ever rests on your laurels. It's not enough. Y'all are hungry conspirators for big love. And Jesus has got hold of you all to do some great things. So I would love for each of you to take a few minutes simply to talk about dreaming, how you dream about what can happen to your agency. Kate, you want to go first?
Oh, wow, again, okay. Wow, I got lots of dreams about the Ansley School. My biggest one that I vision, and this is so far off, is when we can welcome our children, and we call them scholars, when we can welcome our scholars back after they've completed our program, after they've completed high school, after they've completed their post-high school educational journey, and they can come back because that's going to happen. And I'm looking to hire a lot of them for teachers and for, I just want to see where their little lives lead them, because they all are so full of potential and spirit, and so are their families. So, that's my big dream. But I think going forward, we have the opportunity to lease further space, to buy possibly the building that we're in now and over the next couple of years. And so that's a big dream of mine, that this could be our forever home across the street from the new expanded St. Luke's campus. And I think that would be a really great thing for all of us. The scholars at the Ansley School and their families are they're just my heart. And you know, you look at these families who just ended up in poverty and without secure housing. And you just think they're God's children too. And so God would want us to take every opportunity and resource that we have to not only just give them money and, you know, and support them, but to really walk with them and really be a community. And that's what we've become at the Ansley School is a community. And it's really exciting. So, you know, this has been a big week for us. We announced our new space. We announced the hiring of our new amazing principal. So we're really moving and shaking, and all of my dreams for the Ansley School are coming true just one day at a time. It's not easy, but it's working. And we always say at the Ansley School that the program is divinely convened, because there has not been a barrier that we've come up against yet, where when we just like the space, we just thought, what are we going to do? And here comes the Holy Spirit in with some great solution to our problem to keep us moving forward. So it's an exciting time.
Well, you both do know what being a recipient of manna from above feels like.
Yes.
You really are walking in daily manna coming to you. Tony, one of the things that I was so thrilled as a newcomer returning to Atlanta and St. Luke's, it was about the time that National Public Radio decided to feature 5 metropolitan areas where homelessness actually is decreasing.
Right.
And Atlanta is one of those cities, and you've been in the thick of that with the partnerships that you have. So if you'll just talk a little bit about that, and then please answer my question about how you're dreaming.
Yeah, and one of the great things about Atlanta is the collaborative spirit that does exist, especially over the last 8 to 9 years. We've been part of the City of Atlanta's continuum of care of service providers called Partners for Home. And the director is a longtime friend of mine. As a matter of fact, someone that I worked with going back to my early days at City of Refuge. Her name is Catherine Marchman. And she's just done an incredible job bringing resources to bear for the entire community of service providers and bringing us together and communicating and help us to communicate with one another. And so being involved with Partners for Home and what's going on there, I think that collaborative spirit is what has made it possible for us to see at one time 6 consecutive years of decline in the homeless population count. And again, this year, all indications from the count they did back in January is that we'll see another decline. And so we're at this place where there's real possibility for us to come together and provide kind of the next level of resource, not just getting people off the street or out of shelter, but getting them into a place of permanent stability. And one of the really exciting things that's happened for Crossroads in the last 2 or 3 weeks is that we have formed a partnership, and I can't publicly say with who yet, but hopefully very soon, that will allow us to provide housing assistance for individuals to move into their own independent housing. So beyond just an emergency assistance one time, but now a way to help people make that step into permanent housing and sustain that permanent housing, and wrapped around with our employment services, hopefully have a sustained income to also be able to keep everything stable and stay in their own homes. So we're looking at some long-term case management, assisting people with the income and with the move-in expenses to be able to leave homelessness behind and hopefully have permanent stability in their own home. So that's really exciting, and we've just hired an individual to oversee that program for us and hope to be able to begin moving people within the next week or two. based on that partnership. So we're very excited, but that wouldn't happen without the work that we've done in collaboration with the continuum of service providers, both the Partners for Home and the Regional Commission on Homelessness, which is works out of the United Way. And it kind of goes back to what we did with the Peachtree and Pine Shelter. When the community came to Crossroads and said, okay, we need you to kind of make sure that this goes well. We need you to help us make sure that everything is taken care of there on site at the shelter, because the folks who are staying in that shelter, and there were 400 or 500 at the time, knew Crossroads, they knew our staff, they ate at Clyde's Kitchen, so they trusted us. And so that's, the community was able to come to us and say, we need someone that those we're trying to assist will trust, and that's Crossroads. So from there, we have received incredible attention locally and nationally, especially with NPR and WABE, and articles in the AJC, including this past week, a WABE interview on our mailroom, and an AJC article on Clyde and the work that he's done in his kitchen. And so we're just really excited about where we're headed in this holistic approach. Kind of some of the final pieces that we haven't been able to get to are now becoming available, both through employment and housing assistance and the dollars to provide those. So we're really excited about the future. And let me mention one other thing, Ed, that looking way down the road, mental health is such a serious issue among those experiencing homelessness, if nothing else because of the trauma that we talked about earlier. And so we're looking to begin to bring into place some more mental health collaborations and partnerships, talking with Dorothea at TAC and others about ways that we can make this service accessible for the neighbors we serve, and hopefully make it free of charge, so that this very important issue can be approached by professionals that are able to help people with mental health issues.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. I was about to ask you about that, because what you've said is very exciting, and it is not so easy to find somebody housing, move them in, get them a job, and then shake the dust off your feet and move on to the next person. Because it is the case, isn't it, that people who experience homelessness have a disproportionate experience of mental instability.
That's
and
right.
There is need to come up under that and interrupt that cycle as well.
That's right. Often, Ed, the mental health issue leads to their homelessness, but once they experience the trauma of being homeless, that mental health issue is made more acute by that trauma. And so then you see a much longer process that it's going to take to deal with the multifaceted and co-occurring disorders that exist between mental health issue, trauma, and homelessness, poverty, and often all of those combined, of course, lead to physical health issues as well, because we know they're all interrelated. Our physical health, our mental health, those things work in tandem. And so we begin to see hypertension and diabetes and other issues because of poor diets and because of stress and trauma, anxiety, things like that. And so we have to consider those things. Otherwise, putting someone in a house is just not going to work. They've got to be able to maintain that, and that takes emotional and mental, spiritual stability as well.
Thanks. Before we wrap up, I do want to tag on to your having mentioned TAC just now. Everybody who's listening in, this is a two-part forum, this Sunday and then the following Sunday. And in next Sunday's conversation about the agencies that are housed or have been recently housed at St. Luke's, we'll be talking to the directors of the Training and Counseling Center, TAC, Church of the Common Ground, our effort, the diocese's effort to provide spiritual community for people who are experiencing homelessness, and the park of St. Luke's, which is located on these 7 acres of miracles where I love to go and where I miss going on a regular basis. And I know all of you are missing going. So let's wrap up. Kate, is there anything I didn't ask that I should have, or anything you want to say that could include?
I'll say, yes.
Okay.
I will say, and this is something I thought of when Tony was talking. This is a question that I can imagine a lot of people are asking right now, is that I referred to rent assistance for some of our families that we're providing during this pandemic. And people think, but I thought you had a school for children who were experiencing homelessness, so why do they need rent? But as Tony talked about, it's a process. And so one of our values that I didn't mention was that if a child is enrolled in our school, they're experiencing homelessness when they're enrolled, but even if they find stable housing, often that housing is precarious or it's not really permanent. And even if they do find permanent and stable housing, they can stay at our school, because the study shows that once you've experienced that trauma from homelessness, it makes it difficult to do everything. So what we try to do is bring our families in. And as someone at the United Way told me, if your families can't find housing within a year or two of being at the school, then our community has failed them. So we work really hard with our partners to help our families find housing to move into. And then we work really hard with our partners to support them and manage them so they can stay. It's hard when you move into your own housing. There's all kinds of mental illness. You get a job, you have to buy your own groceries, so it's a process. It's not you are homeless or you're not homeless. It's a whole continuum of care, and I think that's what all the service providers in Atlanta are doing. So it's really exciting.
What an important thing to say. Tony, do you have any closing words?
I just want to extend my gratitude to you, Ed, and the clergy and staff, the vestry, and the parishioners of St. Luke's for standing beside us during this crisis, for so many phone calls and emails that I've received on a regular basis of people just asking what we needed, or people just letting me know that they're praying for us. It's been incredible to have the support of a worshiping community through the crisis, because there have been days where this was really, really hard. And I know there'll be more days like that ahead. But we always had a foundation, a strong foundation, a rock that is the body of Christ at St. Luke's, and we're deeply appreciative of that.
Well, we appreciate
that. Thank you to St. Luke's for all your support.
Thanks, Kate. And the feeling is so mutual. Everybody at St. Luke's, I have never talked with anybody who didn't absolutely adore the two of you and your leadership. You are so appreciated by St. Luke's, not only for doing what you're doing, and also communicating that we are serious about the gospel, the good news of good love, down in the intractable urban problems of downtown Atlanta. And you are such parts of the solution. So thank you, thank you, thank you. God bless you. And thank you all for watching today. Tune in next Sunday. TAC, Church of the Common Ground, and the park at St. Luke's. Have a great, great Sunday, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
Thank y'all.